Hi guys, today we're going to be taking a look at XRP's price action, sharing my thoughts and opinions on what I think is likely to happen next. As I get into this, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new, and let's get started. So here we have XRP paired up with USDT, but on the 1 hour Binance chart. Now I do have an open short position on XRP, but I don't think that's actually what's going to play out longer term. I could be wrong, so obviously I opened it up for a purpose, but I'm looking at the chart now and I think actually we're probably going to see a bit of a relief rally again. Now, well, good news is that we're kind of consolidating around the kind of 200 hourly EMA. We've kind of prevented a death cross with the yellow line crossing lower than the white line, basically 50 simple moving average, lower than the 200 exponential moving average. A little bit of technical terms, I know, but for the most part, our consolidation all around $3 is actually looking reasonable at this point. So I am a little concerned with the potential downside, which is why I opened up the short yesterday. But looking at our chart, I'm looking at this thinking to myself, how low could this possibly go before really starting to get another reversal? And it's somewhere between $2.97.4 and $2.98.6. So it's not massive downside potential, but there's a reason why I opened up the short position was because it looked like I could take a little bit of liquidity out of the market. So I think I'm going to close my short position probably after I've recorded this video, because I don't think there's terribly too much more room to the downside on the smaller time frame. Let me show you why. Right, our stochastic RSI, this is basically 2 steps removed from the price action. What it means is that it's really sensitive to the price movements. And when those lines drop down to lower than the dashed lower line, lower than 30 or lower than 20, I should say, this basically indicates that the market's oversold. So actually it's exhausting all of that sell pressure, right? And so when it's down here, and it can be down here for a while, but basically it just tells us that momentum is kind of winding down. Now, what I see is the potential cross between this yellow line and the white line. It's a little bit bigger, but the yellow line and the white line. When you have that cross, that's a bullish cross and is indicating that momentum is shifting from selling to buying, right? And this is happening on the hourly chart. So this tells me that there's not a huge potential worry for a significant slippage, but there's still a potential for a bit more, but nothing major, right? And that's the good sign. So we're talking really, I think probably from the current price, well, not even 1%, right? It's hardly any slippage left. So I'm thinking limited downside, and that actually gives me bullish vibes longer term. You can also see from our relative strength index, the RSI, this is showing bullish or hidden bullish divergence, right? We have hidden bullish divergence as we're testing the 200 EMA. So although I suspect maybe we can get a little flush to the downside, I think actually we're gearing things up more bullishly than bearishly. The MACD histogram, also very interesting, doesn't give us a lot of ground for concern. And there was a little bit where we had higher highs on the price action and lower highs on that histogram. Let me draw that in properly, right? So that was giving us, okay, well, we've got higher highs on price, but it's not being backed by buyers. Therefore, actually the market was going to be turning down. So hence the idea of going short on the market. It was giving us shorting vibes early on, but now that's changing. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, we come out of the short and we potentially go long instead. I think there's the potential for this correction to come on down. Let's just say it does touch $2.98, just an example, right? Say it does that. Then we could be looking at $3.09.3 to $3.11.87 for a relief kind of rally to the upside. I still kind of call it a relief because I suspect that actually this isn't going to be the breakout moment that we need just yet. So we had a good run here. We've had this kind of really choppy kind of corrective pattern to the downside. And then I've had this another short-term corrective move to the upside. All in all, this can be a bigger play where we have something to this effect actually playing on out, and we are going to be coming down deeper in our price action before we actually get recovery. So move up only to move back down. So although I'm short right now, I would get stopped out if I would let it just run to $3.09. Instead, what I want to do is come out of my short position, look for the entries on the long positions and look to ride it out to $3.09 and then potentially go short again. Okay, because I do think that this is a potential pattern. Now it can change, of course. We can see more bullishness potentially on the horizon, but again, we're on the 1 hour time frame. This is really choppy market. It's a little bit kind of, I guess, nuanced just with how well this is working out. But anyway, that's the 1 hour time frame. Lots of volatility. You probably aren't all that interested in that, but it's worth just for context here. If I roll this up into a daily time frame, here you get a different story, right? Because each candle represents one day, it gives you a much bigger kind of bullish vibes. Now, I'm still concerned about the 200-day exponential moving average and these potential targets a little bit lower in that price action. That's why all those yellow boxes are down there. These are areas of concern that I have. But for the most part, we have rallied nicely and we took out $3.12.8, which was our previous swing high from August the 24th. So we're doing reasonable. And this next flush to the downside could just be another $2.88 retest before actually going up again. And that's the bullish case that I have here, because I'm looking at the data and I'm thinking to myself, we don't really see a reason to be terribly too concerned about things, right? We have the bullishness that we saw with these lows. We had lower lows going on with the price action, right? Which we spoke about before, but lower lows on that price action. Whilst we have the lower lows on the price action, we have higher lows on the histogram. That shows that there's weakness within this move to the downside, and we started to get a recovery, right? A relief rally that I called it at the time. And we haven't broken the previous highs just yet, $3.33 to $3.38, right? We do want to see these getting broken out. And that's what I think is potentially on the horizon here, right? What I think we could be looking at is a small flush to the downside in that kind of hourly chart, right? I'm talking, let me bring it back. Let me just bring this into view. So we're talking about that move coming down, right? That kind of larger, W, X, Y pattern like this, testing out $2.88, right? That pattern. And I think what we've got on the daily chart is a way of actually looking at that and thinking, okay, well, if that plays out, what does that actually look like? Well, that would basically just be looking at bringing us down into this range down here, that $2.88, right? And if we do that, and we move this over to our $2.88 bounce, well, then we are looking at targets going up higher, specifically $3.40 to $3.54 on that next short-term move. And if that breakout happens, that breakout that we all kind of dream for when it comes to XRP, well, that breakout would be confirmed right up here at $3.77. That right there, that 1.618 target would basically be the area where I would be looking at taking all of this data and saying, yes, we are finally getting those breakouts towards $4 and potentially even higher where we have $5.30, $5.40, right? Even after that, potential breakout at $5.38.94 for 1.618 higher, well, that there is going to be interesting to see whether we continue to push. So all the data that I have access to here from the candlesticks, which by the way, guys, is just a representation of the behavior of people buying and selling. That's all it's doing, right? Every candle just represents whether there's more buyers or there's sellers, and how strong those candles are, as in how big or small they are, and the patterns in which they form tells us about that behavior. So if you can understand the psychology of the market, then you can understand what they're likely to do next based on those behaviors. Anyway, long story short, from our stochastic RSI, we're still correcting. So $2.88 on this daily chart, I think is reasonable, right? It's a flush out. Yes, it's a little bit frustrating for XRP holders like myself and you guys watching, but ultimately $2.88 is a solid area where was previous resistance, was previous support, and we could potentially then start talking about $3.40 to $3.55, right? And this hourly stochastic, daily stochastic does need to move down a bit. Doesn't mean it has to go all the way to oversold. It just tells us momentum is shifting a little. From a relative strength index perspective, we're still in bullish territory. So a move to $2.88 quickly would actually just be finding solid support and solid floor on that relative strength index. So all in all, right, we're actually in very reasonable positions for XRP. It's looking pretty decent. And if I zoom right out, in fact, I might bring it to a weekly chart just for the context of everything here. There's a lot of yellow boxes that I've drawn on here, right? And you can see all the ones that have been hit, right? The range that we saw in December of 2024, the highs that we had up here in January of 2025, the low that we hit barely, but we hit it coming in April, the consolidation ranges, and all of these little concerns that I have. Now, the higher targets that haven't yet hit, right? $4 to $5.40. These are all the targets that I am mapping out on this bigger macro journey for XRP that I've been mapping for years, right? This isn't just something that I've slapped together quickly. I've been mapping this for a very, very long time. Not a lot of people know this, but this line down here, this white line that's dashed in at $28 and 28 cents, This line is actually one that I had mapped out in 2022. It's one that I actually purchased XRP on back in the 2022 days. I actually paid 30 cents for XRP during this correction to the downside, right? That was a buy order that I had on Binance at the time. You can see here on this Binance chart, it did go down to 28.72, but I locked in those gains. And you can see how that has played out since, right? That's how long I've been mapping these things. I mean, I was purchasing, of course, during 2019, 2020, even the crash, right, of 2020, right? And we got into the not the FTX crash, the lawsuit crash, right, from Jay Clayton, right? I purchased up at something stupid like 18 cents down here, right? So I've been in this market for a very long time. We've hit a lot of our targets on this journey, and I think we're still likely to continue doing so, right? The higher move targets are here, $4 to $5.40. Higher than that is $5.57 to $11.26. Now, that's possible, right? And it's very much possible that we even break out of all of these as well, should something really, really, really crazy happen. But for now, we don't know what that looks like. The data that we have available to us right now looks promising. It looks strong and it looks good, but there's no guarantees that we're going to push into these higher ranges. But speculation says that with all the ETFs and the inflows, this could go absolutely nuts and have a new range of data that I just haven't plotted yet. So for now, this is what I've got, but that's not to say that it cannot change. You can let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments down below. If you found this useful and informative, smash the like button, subscribe for more, and I'll catch you all in the next one.